But then I saw an article that claimed that he had donor fat transfer because he didn't have enough body fat. So I don't know. It says autologous on the website, so I would tend to defer to that. But I guess there's at least some speculation that there were donor fat cells. So
Yeah.
I imagine that means he's on an immunosuppressive regimen if you're getting donor fat injected into you, right?
That must be why he's on the rapamycin. Next is his daily protocol. I guess this is the daily skincare protocol: face wash, other active creams. Not sure what that means. And then vitamin E, vitamin C, ferulic, B3, azelaic, etc. Plus CeraVe AM, CeraVe body, and CeraVe PM on face. And then on top of all that, even after things like the azelaic acid, he still does a tretinoin. And it says 0.1%. Surely that doesn't mean face.
It's a pretty high concentration. And that on top of the azelaic acid, I mean, maybe he has quite oily skin at baseline. I saw something about him maybe taking Accutane recently, but I can't comment too much on that because I'm not sure where I saw that or if it's accurate.
Tretinoin 0.1%, if you apply it over a huge area and you're religious about applying it, is not too dissimilar from the Accutane.
Yeah, isotretinoin, exactly.
I mean, very similar. Maybe he should watch the Skin Science podcast with Dr. Thomas Hitchcock. The dose also likely makes the poison with retinoid derivatives, whether it is max strength topical tretinoin or oral isotretinoin. And obviously there's some use cases with this, but there's reason why some things like retinol are over the counter and like low strength adapalene, 0.1%, and the highest doses of tretinoin are prescription. They can affect your skin microbiome. Again, Dr. Thomas Hitchcock is more of an expert than me on this. But I know that with their products, the BioJuve topical probiotic line that we carry, they've taken retinoids completely out. So if you're going to care about your microbiome in your gut, you should probably also think about your microbiome in the skin. There is some degree of continuity between the two.
Yeah. Then, like we mentioned, a UVA plus B mineral sunscreen, UV environmental filters. I assume this is like in a vehicle if you're driving, or in your home, the windows are blocking UV. Yep. Again, the sunscreen probably doing the bulk of the work here, the 90% of blocking UV if you're putting it on before the sun is up, especially at its most intense time. Then I think that's a great investment. Personally, I'll use a mineral sunscreen around my eyes, and then a chemical sunscreen on the remainder of my face and neck.
Yep. And then I'll also think about your lips, especially if you're going to get a lot of sun exposure and you're predisposed to skin cancers. But regardless, also think about your lips. I always think about my ears, the tops of the ears, where they're going to get the most direct UV exposure. And the nose, as you mentioned. And then, of course, think about the UV blocking nail polish, which I always wear. Just kidding, not that.
So you don't get a melanoma under the fingernail
or
under the toenail.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're really predisposed and have to be exposed to the sun a lot in those areas.
Next, these are things that he, I guess, was trialing at the time. This went on the website. So non-bleeding microneedling with a HA, hyaluronic acid, I assume, serum.
Why would you do this instead of just like cavitation ultrasound to drive in hyaluronic acid or exosomes? I do not know. Microneedling, you want to treat to either pinpoint bleeding or erythema, like we have.
Yeah, and also with the non-bleeding microneedling, this isn't all that dissimilar if we skip down to these micro Botox injections. So you're not really creating a trauma, a stimulus for the skin to recover or heal from, but it's something that, again, the more trauma you induce, the better the result.
Yep.
You have a podcast that'll be coming out with Dr. Williams, right?
Yeah, and we talk about Dr. Williams is a facial plastic surgeon and does his practice is almost exclusively aesthetic. And we talk a lot about our personal regimens, where we use Botox, how we use Botox. We talk about microneedling. We talk about exosomes as well. But with the botulinum toxin, there's several types. Molecule size matters. I've also talked about this with Alec McCarthy. and how some of them you can microneedle in, like daxibotulinum toxin or Inca botulinum toxin, and some of them are too large to microneedle in. But yes, they do have good evidence for pore shrinkage, also for things like acne in general. But you want to either inject it dermally or have something to drive it into the skin in order to do so.
Yeah, and this may be because I know in the past there has been I think he had whole body or at least facial laser resurfacing.
Mm-hmm.
So if he's using that sort of sledgehammer to create the trauma and the end result, maybe he feels it's not worth it. Or more accurately, his medical team doesn't feel it's worth it to add in just traditional old microneedling because it's not aggressive enough. But for me, I think traditional microneedling is a good balance.
Yeah, for sure. We do not currently do radio frequency microneedling in this clinic. There's definitely good candidates for that, and some people get Morpheus over their entire body, which actually we should probably mention later when he talks about lasering. But the next thing on his list is Sculptra. I believe this is what our good friend Dr. Alec McCarthy studied when he was getting his PhD in regenerative medicine. This is considered a regenerative aesthetic product. It can be used a couple different ways. It's kind of the competitor of Radiesse.
Yeah, and then Renuva, and this is an interesting one, mentions autologous fat transfer. As people age, they tend to lose some of those fat pads in the face. In some cases, they're removed, and we find out, that's not necessarily what is going to be in vogue 10 years from now. So people have had a lot of buccal fat removal, I think, is a trend, and now it's sort of moving back the other direction.
I usually take mine in and out, kind of like chewing gum.
But then I saw an article that claimed that he had donor fat transfer because he didn't have enough body fat. So I don't know. It says autologous on the website, so I would tend to defer to that. But I guess there's at least some speculation that there were donor fat cells. So I imagine that means he's on an immunosuppressive regimen if you're getting donor fat injected into you, right?
That must be why he's on the rapamycin. Or I know you can have like a miracle donor baby if someone has a rare cancer and you need a bone marrow transplant. Maybe he had a designer baby with the HLA that he has for that. That is
so farming your
that's
own.
What I would do if I was
a
billionaire.
Yeah. Your billionaire stack. That's Stay tuned for a future episode.
Make sure to bank your designer baby's umbilical stem cell in order to use for your fat transfer. Obviously completely a joke there, but next is whole body LED. Talks about the 630 nanometers red. If that's for mitochondrial health, I think that'd be 670, which is the deep red, not 630. So that's kind of interesting. And then 830 infrared, so the IR phototherapy. It doesn't say exactly why he's doing this, but phototherapy does have good evidence. Obviously, with the salt facials that we do after doing the salt exfoliation, we do the cavitation ultrasound and then phototherapy, often for things like acne or to drive particles in. But this is on his whole body.
Yeah, and the objective there looks like his accelerated healing, skin health, helping with anxiety and depression, sleep.
Only if applied to forehead. Does that 670 nanometer light that is not present in that wavelength, does it penetrate the cerebrum?
I feel like it's more likely that by being exposed to the forehead, it's getting in through the eyes.
Why wouldn't you just expose it $10 670 nanometer deep red flashlight?
What if I put a red piece of paper over a spotlight?
Or that, if it was, I guess it would have to be the perfect color of red, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Of note, there is good evidence for retina health. And of course, if light hits the retina, it's going to go along the optic nerve, stimulate the pineal gland. So this does have potential help. It's just...
If I was going to pick a regimen like this, I would actually have the light oscillate between like a 570 nanometer up to 870 and back down. So I'm getting a spectrum of different lights and benefits so that if let's just say by dumb luck or unluckiness, I pick the two spectrums that don't work, then at least I'm getting like a range as opposed to fixing myself to these two specific spectrums.
He bought his from this red dottled website, probably thousands of dollars. We should link one that's like $10 from Amazon. So if you want to get your red light therapy,
or maybe a
for your
tool
retina.
to measure the wavelength. Those can't be too expensive.
Yeah. I have seen that some of the sellers on Amazon say certified to be 670 or 630 or whatever the IR wavelength is.
Yeah, I'm always a bit of a skeptic.
Yeah.
If I decide
That'd be
to delve
interesting.
into red light therapy,
Mhm.
I will probably be verifying those claims.
If there is not a biohacker YouTuber that has done that yet, we will be attempting to do that soon. So
Yeah.
we'll give it a shot.